You know, they say the internet is written in ink, but some people still act like they're scribbling in disappearing pencil. I learned this lesson the hard way, or rather, I taught it the hard way a few years back. I'm in an interracial relationship, and I've never been shy about it online. But one day, I opened my inbox to a message from a user named Derek. It wasn't just a troll comment. It was a manifesto. He called me a race traitor, accused me of betraying my heritage, just vile, hateful stuff that makes your stomach turn. Now, most people would hit block and move on, but something about the sheer audacity of this guy. His account was 6 years old. He wasn't hiding behind a burner. He was comfortable. So, I decided to do a little digging. I took his username, let's call it CheeTownBear85, and started plugging it into search engines with different email domains. Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail. Bingo. A Hotmail address popped up linked to a classified ad selling NFL tickets. In the ad, the guy listed his real first name, Derek, mentioned he was a die-hard Chicago Bears fan, and said he was originally from Toronto. I went back to his Reddit history. Born in Toronto? Check. Lives in Chicago? Check. Obsessed with the Bears? Check. I had him. From there, it was like pulling a loose thread on a cheap sweater. I found his LinkedIn. Derek wasn't just some basement dweller. He was a senior manager at a logistics firm that practically wouldn't shut up about their commitment to diversity and inclusion on their homepage. I sent him a connection request. He accepted immediately because, you know, he's got 500 plus connections and an ego to match. Now I had the full picture. His public Facebook was full of borderline jokes, the kind that give you plausible deniability. But his Reddit? It was a cesspool of slurs. The contrast was staggering. Here's a guy who probably hires and fires people based on the color of their skin, hiding in plain sight. So, I called his company's HR tip line. I didn't yell. I just asked, hey, hypothetically, would you be concerned if one of your senior managers was actively undermining your diversity policy with hate speech online? The silence on the other end was heavy. They asked for proof. I sent a PDF dossier that would make the FBI jealous. Screenshots, links, timestamps, the cross-referenced bio. A few weeks later, they thanked me for the report, but said they couldn't discuss personnel matters. Classic corporate speak. But I kept watching. A month later, Derek posts on LinkedIn, open to new opportunities. I couldn't help myself. I messaged him on Reddit. Hey man, heard you got canned. That was me, by the way. He exploded. Threatened to hunt me down, hurt my family, the works. I reported that message to Reddit admins, and boom, permanent ban. But here is the kicker, the guy didn't learn. He got a new job pretty quickly. I checked his LinkedIn a week later, and there he was, gloating about landing a director role at a new place. Bad news for Derek. HR departments are universally easy to reach. I had a lovely chat with the HR director at his new gig, a woman who, judging by her name, was a person of color herself. I just forwarded the old file plus the new threats he sent me. 2 weeks later, his LinkedIn vanished, completely scrubbed. I checked the new company's Our Team page. No Derek. He was ghosted from the internet. I would have gone for job number 3, but he finally learned the most important lesson of the digital age. Shut up or lose everything. But you know, digital revenge is clean. It's sterile. Dealing with entitlement in the real world, out on the dirt and grass where you live, that is a whole different animal. Let me tell you about the war for the Double Bar Ranch. My family has owned this land for over 100 years. I grew up on the saddle, learning to respect the soil before I could even read. When my dad retired, I took over. It's a quiet life, or it was, until the property next to us sold to a woman I'll call Brenda. Brenda was a city transplant, the kind who buys a ranch not to work the land, but to wear designer boots and post photos of sunsets. She rolled into our dusty little town in a pristine white G-Wagon, complete with a miniature poodle in her handbag. Almost immediately, she made it clear that our rural lifestyle was an eyesore to her. She complained about the smell of manure on a ranch. She complained about the roosters crowing at dawn. She acted like she had moved into a gated community, not agricultural land. The tension snapped one Tuesday morning. I was out doing fence checks when one of my hands radioed me. Boss, you need to see the north pasture. I rode over and found a 20-foot section of our fencing cut, cleanly, with bolt cutters. Because of that gap, 3 of my heifers had wandered onto Brenda's manicured lawn. I fixed the fence and rode straight to her house. Before I could even knock, she stormed out, screaming. She accused me of releasing the cattle to destroy her hydrangeas. She was hysterical, shouting about property values and lawsuits. I tried to explain that fences don't cut themselves, but she slammed the door in my face after threatening to bankrupt my hillbilly operation. I wasn't scared of the law. We've been here since before the town had a stoplight. But Brenda was relentless. She started rallying the other newcomers in town, spreading rumors that our cattle were diseased, that we were polluting the groundwater. She even got the sheriff involved. Poor Sheriff Miller, a guy I've known since kindergarten, had to come out while she screamed about noise pollution from the cows mooing. He literally told her, "Ma'am, the cows were here first. If you don't like the sound of beef, move back to the city." She didn't like that. A week later, I woke up to a spectacle. Brenda had organized a protest at my main gate. She had about 15 people, mostly her friends from the city and a few disgruntled locals, holding signs that said, "Shut down the filth and save our water." They were blocking my feed trucks. That was it. I grabbed my rifle, not to hurt anyone, just to make a point, and walked down the driveway. I fired 2 warning shots into the air. The silence that followed was beautiful. The protesters scattered like cockroaches when the lights turn on. Brenda stood there, shaking, screaming that I was unhinged. I walked right up to the gate and told her, "You are trespassing. You are slandering a business that feeds this county. Get off my land, or the next call isn't to the sheriff. It's to my lawyer for harassment." She retreated, but she had one card left. She called the state environmental agency, reporting us for mishandling biological waste. It's a serious accusation that can shut a ranch down for months. An inspector came out, a serious guy with a clipboard. Brenda stood there with a smug grin, waiting for the padlock to go on my gate. The inspector spent 4 hours checking our water tables, our waste management, everything. At the end, he walked over to us. Brenda stepped forward, beaming. "Well, how bad is it?" The inspector looked at her, then at me, and said, "Actually, this facility is operating above state standards. It's one of the cleanest operations I've seen this year." The look on her face, it was like watching a balloon deflate in slow motion. I leaned in and whispered, "Checkmate, Brenda." She put her house on the market 2 weeks later. She couldn't handle the humiliation. Last I heard, she moved back to a condo in the city where the only animals she has to deal with are pigeons. It just goes to show, you can have all the money in the world, but you can't buy the kind of roots we have out here. Speaking of roots and family, things can get messy when you mix blood and money. I read this story about a guy, let's call him Sam, who faced a decision that nearly tore his family apart. Sam was the youngest of 13 grandkids. His grandparents were wealthy, owned a horse training farm, really successful people. But as they got older, the family drifted away. Except for Sam. Sam was the one who mucked the stalls on weekends. Sam was the one who wrapped the Christmas presents when Grandma's arthritis got too bad. Sam worked at their bar on Friday nights for free just to help out. The cousins? They were nowhere to be found unless there was a party or a check to be collected. When Sam's grandma passed away, the will was read. The parents and aunts got a decent chunk, about $85,000 each. But then came the grandkids. 12 of the cousins got $2,000 and a keepsake. Sam got $45,000. You can imagine the explosion. The aunts and uncles were furious. The cousins were demanding Sam split the money evenly to keep the peace. They pulled every guilt trip in the book. We have mortgages, we have kids, we're family. Sam stood his ground, and honestly, I stood up and cheered when I read it. He kept the money. He used it to pay off his student loans and fund his wedding. His parents backed him up, telling the rest of the family to kick rocks. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. Inheritance isn't a participation trophy. It's a final act of love, and love is about who shows up when it's not convenient. But sometimes, the entitlement isn't about money. It's about control. I worked in corporate for a few years, and I had a manager, let's call her Linda, who was the definition of failing upwards. Linda was hired as the second in command of our editorial department, and she decided her legacy would be the company's style guide. Before Linda, we updated the guide maybe once a year. After Linda, it was weekly. She obsessed over it. But here's the thing, Linda was an idiot. She started implementing rules that were grammatically incorrect. The big one, She decided that men's basketball shouldn't have an apostrophe because the men don't own the team. I tried to explain. I said, Linda, men is already plural. The apostrophe denotes association, like a men's room. It's basic grammar. She stared at me like I was speaking Klingon and told me to just do it. So, I engaged in a little thing I like to call malicious compliance. I sent her an email. Hi Linda, just to be absolutely clear for my records, you are instructing me to remove the possessive apostrophe from all gendered sports terms, contrary to standard English grammar? Please confirm. She replied, yes, do it. I printed that email. I printed every email where she instructed us to introduce errors into our publications for high-profile clients. I followed her rules to the letter. The content looked stupid. The clients started complaining. 6 months later, corporate caught on. They started firing people for the errors. When they called me in for my exit interview, I handed HR a thick manila folder. Here is every instruction Linda gave me, timestamped, proving she forced these errors. I got fired anyway, collateral damage, but I landed a better job a week later. Linda? 3 months later, the investigation closed. Not only was she fired for incompetence, but they found out she had fabricated half her resume. She took down the department director with her. If you're going to be stupid, make sure you don't put it in writing. And you know, sometimes you just have to laugh at the pettiness of it all. Like this story about a drone operator. We had a guy in our neighborhood who bought a high-end drone and decided he was the neighborhood surveillance state. He'd hover it over backyards, peek into windows, just total creep behavior. A mom in the neighborhood caught the drone hovering over her kids in the backyard. She filmed it landing at the creep's house and posted it on the town Facebook page. The creep's wife jumped in the comments, defending him, saying, "Oh, he hasn't flown it in weeks," pushing lie after lie. But small towns are vicious. Someone recognized the house. Turns out, the creep and his wife owned a local business that relied on foot traffic. The community didn't get violent. They just got quiet. They stopped going. "Oh, we're going out of town to buy our supplies," they'd say. The business tanked. It's the ultimate play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You can't be a peeping Tom and expect your neighbors to buy your wares. But my favorite story of the bunch, it has to be the moldy sandwich. It's a throwback to 1982, Los Angeles. This girl, 6 years old, brings a cool metal toy airplane to school. A bully named Victor steals it. The principal, useless, as usual, sides with the bully because girls don't play with planes. Fast forward 6 months. The girl's mom has to work weekends, so she sends the girl to a babysitter, a tough-as-nails Mexican lady named Consuela. Consuela took no prisoners. She had a wooden spoon, and she knew how to use it. And who else ends up being babysat there? Victor. Now, Consuela was a great cook, but she cut corners for the kids. One Sunday, she makes sandwiches with gristly chicken and old avocado. The girl hates it, but you don't say no to Consuela. So, she waits for a distraction and hucks the sandwich under an armchair in the TV room. A week passes. Victor is back at the babysitter's, acting like an angel because he's terrified of Consuela. Consuela walks into the TV room and smells something dying. It's the sandwich. It's been rotting in the LA heat for 7 days. It's a biological weapon at this point. She finds it. She turns around, eyes blazing. The girl looks at Consuela with big, innocent eyes and says, "Tia, I saw Victor in that room last week. Maybe he dropped it?" Consuela turned on Victor like a heat-seeking missile. He had to climb a tree to escape the wooden spoon. He spent the afternoon up there until his parents came. He never messed with that girl again. Sometimes, revenge is a dish best served moldy. It's funny how these things work out. Whether it's a racist manager getting erased from LinkedIn, a rancher standing his ground against a city slicker, or a little girl framing her bully, the universe has a way of balancing the scales. It might take time, and you might have to give it a little push, but the truth usually comes out. There was this other situation that really stuck with me about boundaries. A young woman, 24 years old, inherited a decent amount of money from her grandmother. Her sister, however, was a train wreck, single mom, 3 kids by 3 different dads, drowning in debt, constantly getting fired. The family pressured the responsible sister to give her inheritance to the mess of a sister. She needs it more, they said. She refused. She kept the money for a house down payment. And honestly, good for her. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they're the ones holding the matches. If you bail someone out of a hole they dug themselves, you're not helping them. You're just buying them a bigger shovel. And then there's the petty stuff that just makes you smile. Like the guy whose brother-in-law gave him a bottle of expensive whiskey for his birthday. Nice gift, right? Except the guy had been a recovering alcoholic for 6 years. The brother knew this. He opened the bottle and started pouring shots, mocking the guy for being a sober saint. The guy didn't scream. He didn't cry. He walked over, picked up the $200 bottle, and dropped it into the kitchen trash can. Smashed it. Then he took the trash bag out to the dumpster. The silence in that room must have been deafening. The family called him disrespectful, but I call that dignity. You don't let anyone jeopardize your survival for a laugh. I think the common thread here is that people will push you as far as you let them. They'll park in your driveway. They'll steal your work. They'll demand your money. They'll mock your sobriety. And they rely on your politeness to get away with it. They rely on you not wanting to make a scene. But making a scene is exactly what you have to do sometimes. There was this Amazon delivery driver. This one is just classic. Guy gets a notification his package is delivered. He goes outside, no package. He sees the driver 2 houses down. He runs over. Hey, my app says you delivered, but it's not there. The driver stammers, looks guilty, says, oh, it's probably a duplicate. Another driver has the real one. The guy doesn't buy it. He calls Amazon support right there on the sidewalk. He tells them, I'm looking at the driver. He says he didn't deliver it, but marked it delivered. While he's on the phone, the driver panics. He runs back to the van, grabs the package, throws it on the guy's porch, and peels out of the neighborhood like he robbed a bank. He was trying to steal it, plain and simple. If the guy hadn't confronted him, that package would have been on eBay by dinner time. You have to be your own advocate. And finally, let's talk about the ultimate Karen move. This woman in Poland lived on a street with a crappy, broken sidewalk. She would scream at anyone who parked in front of her house, claiming, this is my sidewalk. She terrorized the neighbors for years. So, one neighbor's mom invites a friend over for coffee. The friend happens to be a traffic cop. He parks in front of Karen's house. She storms out, screaming, get your car off my property. This is my sidewalk. The cop steps out, full uniform. He smiles. Oh, so this is your sidewalk. You own it? Yes, she screams. I own it. Excellent, he says, pulling out his ticket book. Since you own it, you are legally responsible for clearing the snow and ice. It's currently a hazard to public safety. I'm going to have to write you a fine for neglecting your property. She froze. But other sidewalks are cleared by the city. Yes, he said, because those are public. But you just confessed this one is yours. So which is it? Is it yours and you pay the fine? Or is it public and I can park here? She never yelled at anyone again. It just proves that entitled people are usually cowards. They thrive on intimidation, on volume, on the assumption that you will back down. But the moment you stand tall, whether it's with a well-placed report to HR, a demand for a style guide rule in writing, or just a simple no, their power evaporates. So, I want to leave you with this. We all have a Brenda or a Derek in our lives. Maybe they're your boss, your neighbor, or even a family member. They want you to feel small so they can feel big. Don't let them. Document everything. Know your rights. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to fire that warning shot, metaphorically speaking, of course. I'm curious, though. Which one of these stories got your blood boiling the most? Was it the racist manager getting what he deserved, or the city lady trying to shut down the ranch? Personally, I'm still thinking about that moldy sandwich. It's the little victories that count. Let me know in the comments what you would have done in these situations. Would you have kept the inheritance? Would you have confronted the drone guy? Let's talk about it. And remember, the only thing necessary for the triumph of entitled jerks is for good people to do nothing. So do something. Stay safe, stay strong, and I'll catch you in the next one.